The Sierra Nevada mountains cut into the sky like broken teeth. I stepped off the transport truck, my boots crunching on snow that hadn't melted since November. The air bit at my lungs, sharp and thin. Around me, 44 other Marines hauled their gear, breath steaming in white puffs that disappeared too quickly. "Welcome to hell, gentlemen." Staff Sergeant Dorn's voice cracked like a whip. His eyes were the color of old ice. "Operation Cold Reach begins now." I shouldered my saw, feeling its familiar weight. Machine gunner, that's what they called me. Lance Corporal Mason Reeve, the guy who carried the big gun and tried not to think about using it. Lieutenant Carter Vega appeared beside me, his SEAL trident glinting against his chest. We'd known each other since basic, but something in his face looked different now. Older, more careful. "Hey, Reeve," he said, voice low. "Listen to me. Up there," he nodded toward the peaks, "it remembers names." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "What's that supposed to mean?" Vega's hand gripped my shoulder. His fingers were cold, even through my jacket. "Don't say names out loud. Not yours, not anyone's. And if you hear someone calling you," he paused, studying my face, "make sure it's really them first." Before I could ask what he meant, Dorn's whistle shrieked across the staging area. We formed up in perfect lines, the way we'd done 1,000 times before. But something felt wrong. The mountains watched us with invisible eyes, and the wind carried whispers that might have been voices. "Devil's Incline," Dorn announced. 3 days, survival training. Don't disappoint me." The name hung in the air like a curse. My watch started at 2 a.m. The world had gone dead quiet, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I sat outside our tent, weapon ready, staring into darkness so complete it felt solid. The cold seeped through my gear, making my bones ache. I flexed my fingers to keep them from going numb. Around me, the other tents sat like small islands in an ocean of night. That's when I heard it. "Mason," my mother's voice, soft and warm like Sunday mornings, like chocolate chip cookies and scraped knees. I turned toward the sound, my heart hammering. "Mason, honey, come here." It came from the tree line, maybe 50 meters out, but my mother was in Ohio, probably asleep in her bed, with the television still on. She always fell asleep watching the news. "Mom," said, "I'm cold, Mason. So cold." I raised my weapon, finger on the trigger, but there was nothing there. Just trees and shadows, and the smell of pine needles mixed with something else, something that reminded me of old meat. Behind me, I heard the tent flap rustle. Private Boland stuck his head out, his eyes wide and unfocused. "You hear that?" "Hear what?" "The calling." He stepped outside in just his underwear and boots. I grabbed his arm. "Get back inside, now." But Boland wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the woods, head tilted like he was listening to music I couldn't hear. His lips moved without sound, and I swear I saw frost forming on his breath, even though the air was still. "Boland, private." He blinked, shook his head, and looked at me like he'd forgotten I was there. "Yeah, Corporal. Get inside. That's an order." He nodded and disappeared back into the tent, but I caught the way his eyes lingered on the darkness, hungry and strained. The blizzard hit during third watch. Snow fell so thick I couldn't see my own hands. The wind howled like something dying, and the cold bit through every layer of clothing I wore. We'd been ordered to maintain perimeter patrol, even in the storm. "Marines don't quit because of weather," Dorn's voice crackled through the radio. I was paired with Boland for the 4 a.m. patrol. We moved through knee-deep snow, our flashlights cutting weak circles in the white wall around us. The had shrunk to maybe 10 feet in any direction. "Can't see shit," Boland muttered beside me. His voice sounded different, flatter, like he was reading from a script. "Stay close," I said. "Don't want to lose you in this." That's when we heard it, a voice cutting through the wind, clear as a bell. "Private Boland, report." We both stopped. The voice came from ahead, maybe 20 feet. It sounded like Sergeant Dorn, but something was off. The words were too crisp, too perfect. "That's Dorn." But he didn't move forward. "Boland, that's an order. Report immediately." This time I heard it too, not just the voice, but the wrongness underneath it, like someone playing a recording of Dorn rather than the man himself. "Don't," I said. "Something's not right." Boland was already walking forward, his feet crunching in the snow. "Yes, Sergeant," he called out. "Private Boland reporting." I followed, trying to keep him in sight. The wind screamed around us, and I lost track of which direction we'd come from. When I looked back, Boland was gone. "Boland! Boland!" Only the wind answered. I found his rifle buried in the snow, barrel down like he'd dropped it mid-step. But there were no footprints leading away, just empty white in every direction. They found him 30 kilometers away, sitting naked in a snowbank like he was waiting for a bus. The rescue team said he was humming when they approached, some song none of them recognized. I was there when they brought him into the medical tent. His skin was blue-white, frost coating his eyebrows and lips, but he wasn't shivering. He should have been dead. But his pulse was steady and strong. "Boland," I said, kneeling beside the cot. "What happened out there?" He turned his head toward me, and I saw the blood. Dark red streaks running from both ears, already dried and flaking. His eyes were different too, wider, like he was seeing things the rest of us couldn't. I went where I was called. I followed orders. I am a good Marine. "Who called you?" "The sergeant. He said my name. He said my name." The repetition sent ice through my veins. "What sergeant?" "The one who knows." His eyes fixed on mine, and I saw something move behind them, something that wasn't Boland. "The one who watches, the one who waits." Doc Harris pushed me aside, shining a flashlight into Boland's ears. "Jesus Christ! His eardrums are completely destroyed. Looks like they burst from the inside." "Can he hear us?" "No way. He's completely deaf." "I can hear everything now, Corporal Reeve. Everything that matters." Doc Harris stepped back, his face white. "That's impossible. He can't hear anything." I looked at Boland again. His lips were moving, but no sound came out. When I read them, they were repeating the same phrase over and over. "He knows your name. He knows your name. He knows your name." The climbing exercise was supposed to be routine. Rappel down a 60-foot cliff face, secure the landing zone, signal for the next Marine. We'd done it 100 times before. Neutral, observant tone. Corporal Martinez was halfway down when it happened. I was belaying from the top, feeling the rope's tension through my gloves. Everything was normal. Quick pause, then sharp shift, until the rope went slack. I looked down and saw Martinez falling, not rappelling, falling. His scream cut through the mountain air like a blade. He hit the rocks below with a sound I'll never forget, wet and final. "Medic!" I shouted, but I knew it was too late. The way he landed, the way his body twisted, some things you can't fix. I pulled up the rope, expecting to find where it had torn or frayed, but the end was clean, too clean, like someone had taken a razor blade to it. How the hell does that happen? Lieutenant Vega examined the rope. This is brand new gear. I ran my fingers along the cut. It was perfectly smooth. No tool marks. No signs of wear. Maybe the rocks? Rocks don't cut like this. This was done with something sharp, something precise. Staff Sergeant Dorn appeared beside us, his face unreadable. Gear failure. These things happen. Sergeant, this rope was inspected this morning. It was... Dorn repeats, voice like steel. Gear failure. Write it up. We continue the mission. But I saw the way his eyes moved to the tree line, the way his hand rested on his sidearm. And when the wind picked up, I swear I heard laughter echoing off the rocks. Down below, Martinez's body lay twisted on the stones. His helmet had rolled away, coming to rest against a tree. From where I stood, it looked like someone was wearing it, someone who wasn't there. It came to me during the next watch. 2:13 a.m., according to my watch. The same time every night, like it was keeping a schedule. Corporal Reeve. The voice was formal, professional. It came from just outside the perimeter rope, maybe 5 feet away. I couldn't see who was speaking, but the voice sounded familiar, like someone from my unit. Permission to enter, Corporal. I gripped my weapon tighter. Identify yourself. Permission to enter the perimeter, Corporal Reeve. The same words, exactly the same intonation, like a recording stuck on repeat. I looked around the camp. Everyone else was asleep, or at least pretending to be. No one else had heard it. Who are you? I whispered. I am a Marine Corporal. I request permission to enter. Something cold crawled up my spine. State your name and unit. Silence. Then, I am a Marine Corporal. I request permission to enter. The rope between us trembled, though there was no wind. I could smell something now, rank and sweet, like flowers left too long in water. You can't come in, I said, not without proper identification. I am a Marine, it said again. But this time, the voice was different. This time, it sounded like me. I am a Marine Corporal. I request permission to enter. My own voice, speaking words I hadn't said, coming from somewhere in the darkness just beyond the rope. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat there, weapon ready, watching the empty space where my voice was coming from. Permission denied, I whispered. The thing that sounded like me laughed. Permission denied, it repeated in my voice. Permission denied. Permission denied. Then silence. But I could feel it watching me. Until dawn. I woke up in my sleeping bag with blood on my hands. Not my blood, someone else's. It was dried, flaking off my knuckles like old paint. The tent was empty. My watch showed 1:47 a.m., but that was impossible. The last thing I remembered was settling in for sleep at 10 p.m. the night before. I stumbled outside, my head pounding. The entire camp was stirring, Marines crawling out of tents with confused expressions. Everyone looked like they'd been drugged. What the hell happened? Corporal Jensen asked, holding his head. I feel like I got hit by a truck. Staff Sergeant Dorn emerged from the command tent, his face grim. Sound off, everyone, account for yourselves. We formed up in ragged lines, still half asleep. I tried to remember what had happened during the night, but there was nothing. Just a black hole where 12 hours should have been. Boland, I said, looking around. Where's Boland? Medical tent, Dorn replied. Has been all night. But I remembered Boland being on watch. I remembered seeing him by the perimeter rope, staring into the woods with that strange expression. "Sergeant, I think something happened to us. Nothing happened, Corporal." Dorn's voice cut through my words like a blade. "You all got altitude sickness. Altitude affects sleep patterns, makes you confused." I looked at my hands again. The blood was still there, dark under my fingernails. "Then why do I have blood on my hands?" "Nosebleed," Dorn said without looking, "common at altitude." But I touched my nose, and it was clean. No soreness, no dried blood. The blood on my hands was from somewhere else, someone else. Around me, the other Marines were checking their gear, trying to piece together what had happened. But I could see it in their eyes, the same confusion, the same fear. We'd all lost time, all of us. Lieutenant Vega found me cleaning my weapon after chow. His face was pale, and he held something in his hands, a digital camera. "I need to show you something," he said, glancing around to make sure we were alone. "This was in my gear. I don't remember taking any pictures." He turned the camera screen toward me. The image showed our campsite from the night before, taken during the blackout period. Everything looked normal at first glance. Tents, equipment, the perimeter rope. Then I saw myself. I was in the picture twice. Once sitting by the fire, weapon across my lap. That version looked normal, just me doing my job. The second version was standing behind the first, maybe 10 feet back. This version was different. Its face was wrong, features slightly off, like someone had tried to copy me from memory. And it was staring directly at the camera, with eyes that reflected light like an animal's. "That's not possible," I whispered. "Look at the timestamp," Vega said. 2:44 a.m., right in the middle of our lost time. "You see it too?" I asked. "I see it, but I also see this." He flipped to the next image. Same campsite, same timestamp, but now there was only one version of me, and it was the wrong one, the one with the animal eyes. "How many pictures are there?" 27. His voice was barely audible. "In every one there's something wrong. Someone who shouldn't be there, or someone missing who should be." I scrolled through the images, Marines with backwards faces, tents that cast shadows in impossible directions, and in every picture, that thing that looked like me, watching from different positions. "We need to show these to Dorn," I said. "Already tried. He says the camera malfunctioned. Says digital images get corrupted at altitude." "And you believe that?" Vega's laugh was bitter. "I believe we're in serious trouble, and no one wants to admit it." Agent Rowan arrived by helicopter the next morning. She was civilian, NCIS, wearing a parka that looked too expensive for government issue. Her eyes were the color of winter sky, and when she looked at you, it felt like she was reading your thoughts. "Gentlemen," she said, addressing our assembled squad, "I'm here to conduct some routine interviews about the incidents you've experienced." Routine, like Marines disappearing and reappearing was just another day at the office. She started with me, leading me to a table set up outside the command tent. Her recorder was small, professional, and the red light reminded me of an eye. "State your name and rank." "Lance Corporal Mason Reeve, United States Marine Corps." "Tell me about Private Bolin." I told her everything. The night he vanished, the way we found him, the blood from his ears. She listened without expression, occasionally making notes in a leather-bound notebook. "Have you experienced any hallucinations, Corporal?" "No, ma'am." "Any voices? Strange sounds?" I hesitated. "Yes, ma'am." "Describe them." So I did. The voice that sounded like my mother, the thing at the perimeter, the way it used my own voice. She wrote it all down, her pen scratching across the paper like claws. "Corporal Reeve, you're going to sign this document." She slid a paper across the table. "It's a standard non-disclosure agreement. You'll agree not to discuss these events with anyone outside official channels." "What if I don't sign?" Her smile was cold. "Then you'll be transferred to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. Post-traumatic stress disorder, they'll call it. You'll spend months in treatment, and your military career will be over." I signed the paper. "Good," she said. "Now, forget everything that happened here. For your own good." The climb to Devil's Incline began at 5 a.m. Staff Sergeant Dorn led us up the mountain face, his boots finding purchase on ice-slicked rocks like he'd done this climb 1,000 times before. Maybe he had. "Stay close," he called back. "Weather's turning." He was right. The storm had been building all night, and now thick clouds pressed down on us like a gray ceiling. The wind carried ice crystals that stung exposed skin, and visibility dropped to maybe 20 feet. I was third in line, behind Dorn and Lieutenant Vega. My saw felt heavier with each step, the weight pulling at my shoulders. Below us, the camp had disappeared into the clouds. "Radio check," Dorn said. I keep my mic. "Reeve here." Static. Just static. "Radios are down," Vega reported. "Could be the storm." But I didn't think it was the storm. I thought it was something else, something that didn't want us calling for help. The path narrowed as we climbed higher. On our left, the mountain face rose straight up, slick with ice. On our right, empty air and a drop that would kill you before you had time to scream. "Keep moving," Dorn ordered. "Don't look down." But I did look down, and I saw something that made my blood freeze. In the clouds below, shapes were moving, dark forms that might have been birds, if birds could fly through solid rock. "Sergeant," I called out, "something's wrong." He didn't answer. When I looked ahead, I realized why. The man in front of me wasn't Staff Sergeant Dorn anymore. It was someone else wearing his uniform, someone with his face, but wrong proportions. Too tall, shoulders too wide, eyes that reflected light like mirrors. "Keep climbing, Marines," it said in Dorn's voice. "We're almost there." Halfway up the face, Corporal Martinez and Private Chen just stopped existing. One moment they were there, clipped into the safety line behind me. The next moment, empty air. Their gear remained attached to the rope, swaying in the wind like ghost equipment. "Where are they?" Vega shouted over the storm. I looked down the line. 12 Marines had started the climb. Now there were 10, but 11 sets of gear remained clipped to the rope. "Martinez!" I called out. "Jen!" My voice echoed off the rocks and disappeared into the storm. No response. "They must have fallen," someone said, but I knew that wasn't right. You don't fall and leave your gear behind, perfectly secured to the rope. The compass on my wrist was spinning wildly, needle jumping between directions like it couldn't decide which way was north. The storm was getting worse, but it wasn't behaving like a normal storm. The wind came from different directions simultaneously, and the snow fell upward in some places. "We need to go back," I said to Vega. "Can't. Rope's frozen to the rock below us. We go up or we die here." So we kept climbing. Each step took us further from anything that made sense, further into a place where Marines could vanish mid-climb, and compasses forgot how to point north. The thing that looked like Dorn was still ahead of us, moving with impossible grace across the ice. It didn't slip, didn't struggle, didn't even breathe hard. When it turned to look back at us, its face was Dorn's face, but the expression was all wrong. "Almost there, Marines," it said. "Almost home." But this wasn't home. This was something else entirely. Something that wanted us to keep climbing, keep moving toward whatever waited at the top of Devil's Incline. Behind me, I heard Vega whisper, "The rope's moving by itself." I looked back. He was right. The safety line was pulling taut, then loosening, like something was tugging on it from below. At 8,000 feet, my thermal goggles died. Not the battery, not the electronics. The screen just went black like someone had painted over the lens from the inside. "Thermals are down," I reported. "Mine too," Vega said. "Everyone's are." But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I could see without them. The snow around my boots was compressing in patterns that didn't match my steps. Footprints appeared beside mine, slightly larger, slightly deeper. Someone was walking next to me, but I couldn't see them. "Vega," I whispered, "look at the ground." He followed my gaze and went pale. Jesus Christ. The footprints were everywhere now, dozens of them, crisscrossing our path like a crowd of invisible Marines had joined our climb. But we were the only ones left, just 8 Marines on a mountain that should have been empty. "Don't acknowledge them," Vega said. "Don't react." But it was too late. The footprints were changing, becoming more deliberate. They circled us, stayed close, matched our pace. Whatever was making them knew we could see them. The storm was getting worse, but it wasn't natural weather anymore. The wind carried voices, fragments of conversation, laughter that sounded like it was coming from underwater. I heard my mother again, calling my name. I heard Boland asking for permission to enter. I heard Martinez screaming as he fell. "How much further?" I asked. The thing that looked like Dorn smiled with too many teeth. "We're here, Corporal. We've been here all along." I looked up and saw the summit of Devil's Incline. It was wrong, all wrong. The rocks formed shapes that hurt to look at, and the snow fell in patterns that spelled out words in languages I didn't recognize. But we kept climbing, because what else could we do? On the final night, it spoke all our names. We'd made camp on a ledge just below the summit, our tents arranged in a defensive circle. The storm had passed, leaving behind silence so complete it felt like the world had stopped breathing. I was on watch when it started. 2:13 a.m., same as always. "James Mitchell," it said from the darkness beyond our perimeter. "Sarah Chen. Marcus Rivera." Names. Not just any names. The names of every Marine in our unit, spoken in a voice that was everyone and no one. David Martinez. Eric Boland. Carter Vega. The voices came from all directions now, surrounding us. Some sounded like our mothers, others like drill instructors, still others like friends we'd left behind. Mason Reeve. My name, spoken in my own voice, but I hadn't said it. Around me, the other Marines were stirring, crawling out of their tents with weapons ready. Their faces were pale, eyes wide with terror. "What is that?" someone whispered. "It knows us," Vega said. "It knows all of us." The voices continued, cycling through our names like a roll call from hell, but they were adding others now. Names I didn't recognize, spoken in voices that sounded familiar but wrong. Thomas Baker, Jennifer Walsh, Michael Stone. "Those aren't our names," I said. "No," Vega replied. "They're the names of the Marines who were here before us." The truth hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't the first time. Other units had come to Devil's Incline, other Marines had climbed this mountain, and they'd never left. "How many?" I asked. 43 confirmed, Vega said, over the past 20 years. You knew and you didn't tell us? Would you have believed me?" The voices were getting louder now, more insistent. They spoke in perfect unison, creating a chorus that echoed off the rocks. "Mason Reeve, Mason Reeve, Mason Reeve." I broke down. The sound of my name, repeated over and over in voices I loved and voices I feared, was too much. I fell to my knees, weapon forgotten, and screamed at the darkness. "What do you want?" The voices stopped. In the sudden silence, I heard something else. Footsteps, dozens of them, moving closer to our perimeter. But I still couldn't see who was making them. The evacuation helicopter arrived at dawn, its rotors cutting through the mountain air like salvation. We loaded our gear and our wounded, desperate to leave Devil's Incline behind. Boland was the last to board. He'd been quiet since the night of voices, staring at nothing with those damaged eyes. As the helicopter lifted off, he turned to me. "You left me," he said, but his lips didn't move. The voice came from somewhere else, somewhere behind his eyes. "I didn't leave you," I said. "You're right here. You left me on the mountain. You left me with it." The helicopter shuddered, and I looked out the window. Below us, Devil's Incline was shrinking, becoming just another peak in an endless range of mountains. But something was wrong with the perspective. The mountain looked like it was following us, rotating to keep us in view. "You left me," Boland said again, but this time his voice was different, deeper, older, like something else was speaking through him. "Boland, you're scaring me." He smiled, and black fluid leaked from the corners of his mouth. "I'm not Boland anymore." That's when he started convulsing. The medic rushed over, but there was nothing he could do. The black fluid poured from Boland's ears, mouth, nose. It pooled on the helicopter floor, and I swear I could see shapes moving in it. "Get us to the hospital," the medic shouted, but it was too late. Boland's body went limp, and the black fluid stopped flowing. In the sudden silence, I heard something that made my blood freeze. Laughter, coming from the fluid on the floor. The helicopter shuddered again, and I looked out the window. Devil's Incline was still there, still following us. And on its summit, I could see figures, dozens of them, standing in perfect formation. They were waving goodbye. 6 months later, I was back at Camp Pendleton trying to forget. The debriefing had been thorough, the psychological evaluation extensive. They'd given me a clean bill of health and a new assignment, but I kept the training footage. Agent Rowan had missed one camera, a helmet-mounted unit that had been damaged during the climb. I'd retrieved it before the evidence team arrived, hidden it in my gear. Now, alone in my barracks room, I watched the footage for the 100th time. Most of it was corrupted, just static and broken images. But there was one sequence that played clearly. It showed our arrival at Bridgeport, the moment we'd stepped off the transport truck. I watched myself shoulder my weapon, listened to Dorn's welcome speech, saw Vega approach me with his warning. Everything was exactly as I remembered it, except for one thing. In the background, barely visible behind a supply truck, I could see myself. Not the me that had just arrived, but the me from the mountain. The me with the wrong eyes and the animal smile. I was watching myself arrive. The timestamp showed 3 days before our deployment. I had been at Devil's Incline before I had ever left California. I rewound the footage, watched it again, same result. There I was, standing in the shadows, watching my own arrival with eyes that reflected light like mirrors. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You left me." I looked out my window. In the distance, beyond the base fence, I could see mountains. They looked different now, more angular, more aware. And on the nearest peak, barely visible in the evening light, I could see a figure. It was waving at me. I packed my gear that night and requested a transfer to the desert, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Some things follow you wherever you go. Some things remember your name.